The growl came low and deep, almost a vibration against the back of Jack Whitmore's hand. He froze mid-step. Shadow, his German shepherd, stood rigid beside the frozen edge of Echo Lake. Hackles raised, ears locked forward. That growl wasn't for squirrels or deer or even the occasional black bear that wandered near his property this time of year. No, Jack knew that sound. It came from the part of the dog's brain older than fear, older than language. A warning. Jack crouched beside him, eyes scanning the lake's misty shoreline. The air was sharp with pine and frost, biting at his beard. A fresh October morning in northern Montana usually brought calm and quiet, a retreat from the world, but today felt off. Shadow took 2 cautious steps toward the water and let out a sharp bark. Jack's eyes followed the line of his snout, and there it was. Half submerged in the lake, nestled in a crescent of stone and ice, sat something that did not belong. It wasn't driftwood or old wreckage, no rust, no barnacles, no identifying features at all, in fact, just a perfectly smooth dark sphere, roughly the size of a beach ball, but dense-looking, almost deliberate in its placement. Jack felt a chill crawl up his spine, and not from the cold. He stood slowly. Shadow didn't move, only growled again, teeth bared now. Jack narrowed his eyes, scanning for any sign of others. No tire tracks, no footprints except his own and Shadow's, no boats, no campers, just forest, lake, and snow-dusted silence. The sphere bobbed gently in the shallows, matte black, no reflection, no sound. It was as still as death, and yet undeniably watching. 30 minutes later, Jack had the thing tarped and roped in the bed of his old pickup. It hadn't been easy. The moment his fingers touched its surface, he knew it wasn't just metal. It was wrong. The cold it emitted was unnatural, deeper than the water, sharper than the morning air. His boots had sunk into the lake bed as he'd struggled to roll it onto the tarp, Shadow pacing madly on shore, whining like the devil himself had walked out of the forest. And now, inside the confines of his shed, the thing sat there, mute and still. Jack had turned the overhead bulb on, casting it in pale yellow light, and that somehow made it worse. Its surface looked textured now, like pitted obsidian laced with tiny, almost fractal ridges. It seemed to drink in the light, not reflect it. Shadow refused to enter the shed. He'd planted himself at the doorway, low to the ground, ears laid back, issuing an occasional low whine, eyes never leaving the sphere. Jack stepped back, hands on hips, staring at it. His breath came in slow clouds. He'd seen strange things during his years in the service, things buried in desert sand, silent compounds that didn't exist on maps. But this was different. It felt ancient, not broken or discarded, placed. For a moment, he considered driving it into the deep woods and burying it. Then he thought of the dog. His instincts had saved them both more than once, and they were screaming now. Jack turned slowly, grabbed the thermos of coffee off his workbench, and took a long drink. The coffee was cold. He muttered to himself, "Whatever this thing is, it wasn't meant to be found." The rest of the morning passed in fits and starts. Jack tried researching meteorites, satellite debris, weather balloons. His satellite internet barely cooperated, and nothing in the search results even came close. By mid-afternoon, his unease had turned into a gnawing ache behind his ribs. The thing in his shed wasn't junk, and if it wasn't junk, someone would be looking for it. He sat at his small wooden desk, staring at his laptop screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. There was only one person who might know what this was, or at least where to start. He opened his contacts and clicked on a number he hadn't dialed in years. It rang twice, then, "Dr. Theodore Miller speaking." Jack smiled slightly. Same voice, same rasp. "Hey, Theo, it's Jack Whitmore." A pause, then a chuckle of pure surprise. "Well, damn. I thought you'd finally married a mountain and disappeared for good." "Not yet," Jack replied. "Listen, I've got something weird on my land, something bad weird. I need you to come up here." Another pause, this one longer. Then the professor's tone shifted. "Talk to me." Jack spoke low and precise, giving just enough detail. The sphere, the cold, Shadow's reaction, the absence of explanation, the weight of it. Theo was silent for a long time. Then his voice came back sharper. "You're not screwing with me?" "I'm really not," Theo sighed. "Give me a few hours to pack. I'll be on the road before nightfall." "You sure?" "I've spent the last 10 years reading about the strange and unexplained, Jack." "If you've got something real, I'm not missing it." Jack glanced toward the shed. "It's real, all right. Too damn real." By dusk, the forest had begun to close in. Jack was out back chopping wood, more to stay busy than anything else. Shadow lay nearby but never stopped watching the shed. The quiet was heavy. Even the birds seemed to avoid the place now. Jack's axe split a log clean through, the crack echoing into the trees. He wiped sweat from his brow and muttered, "Hell of a thing to dig up right before winter." Behind him, Shadow growled again. Jack turned fast, expecting movement in the trees. Nothing, just wind brushing through the pines. But the dog wasn't looking at the woods. He was staring dead at the shed. Theo is on the way. Shadow continues acting strange. The mystery deepens, and the object begins to change. If you're ready, I'll move straight into writing Chapter 2 with the same voice, pace, and thematic intensity. Theodore Theo Miller arrived just after 9 a.m., his rusted Subaru crunching over the gravel with a sound that announced both age and purpose. Jack was already waiting on the porch, coffee steaming in his hands, Shadow lying at his feet like a statue carved from muscle and nerves. Theo stepped out slowly, his long coat flapping in the wind, arms full of gear, an old backpack, a handheld Geiger counter, a tablet, and 2 thermoses. His grey beard was thicker than Jack remembered, but his eyes still sharp. "Jesus, Jack," he muttered, glancing around at the dense tree line. "You really did marry a mountain." Jack gave a dry smile. "She doesn't talk back. That's the appeal." Shadow growled softly as Theo stepped closer. "Still got that death stare," Theo said, raising a brow. "He's not usually like this. Ever since I found it, he's been on edge." Theo's smile faded. "So it's real." Jack motioned with his head. "Shed's out back. You'll want to see it for yourself." They didn't talk much as they crossed the frosted yard. The cold bit harder today, and the clouds hung lower than they should have. Something in the air felt alert. Inside the shed, Theo stopped cold. "Damn!" The sphere sat where Jack had left it, silent, still, matte black. The same strange texture crawled across its surface like veins under glass. But in this light, Theo noticed something new. "It absorbs light," he murmured, kneeling slowly. "No reflection, no gloss. That's impossible." "It doesn't hold temperature either," Jack added. "I checked. Stays cold, no matter what." Theo reached into his bag and pulled out the Geiger counter. Clicks echoed in the quiet, then tapered off. Nothing dangerous, but nothing expected either. "No radiation," Theo said, "but high static interference, strong enough to mess with radios. Did you try cutting it open?" Jack snorted. "With what?" "I gave it the works. Grinder, torch, even the old 45 just to see. Didn't leave a scratch." Theo looked up at him slowly. "You shot it?" "Yeah." "Of course you did," Theo muttered, pulling out a compact thermal camera. "You've got the subtlety of a bulldozer." He scanned the surface. The camera whined, then displayed something unexpected. A heat signature, not around the object, but within it. A dull, rhythmic pulse. Jack leaned over his shoulder. "That new?" Theo shook his head. "No idea. But it's not mechanical. It's biological." The words landed like a cold slap. "Come again?" Jack asked. "I mean, I've seen this before. On heart rate monitors, nervous system scans. This looks alive, Jack, or something close to it." Shadow barked suddenly at the door, low and loud, tail rigid. They both turned. "He's been like that since I found it," Jack said. "Last night, he wouldn't even sleep inside." Theo moved to the doorway, crouched, and called gently. "Shadow." "Hey, buddy." Shadow didn't move. "He doesn't trust it," Jack said. "Can't say I blame him." Theo returned to the sphere. He circled it slowly, running his fingers just above the surface without touching it. "There's no seams, no panels. It's like it wasn't built, just is." "Exactly what I thought." Theo stood upright, staring at the object as if waiting for it to speak. And then Shadow let out a sharp bark. The sound made them both jump. The dog was staring at one specific section of the sphere, tail between his legs, ears flat. He started pacing in a tight circle, pawing at the ground. Jack watched, then followed Shadow's eyes to a point on the sphere. There, barely visible. A line. Not a seam, not a crack, but a boundary. Jack stepped forward. "I looked this thing over 20 times. Never saw that." Shadow barked again and sat, eyes locked on that single spot. Jack knelt, hesitated, then touched it. Nothing happened. Then he pressed. The shed went dark. The overhead light blew with a soft pop. The radio crackled, then died. The only sound was Shadow's quickening breath and the low hum now rising from the sphere. And then light. A soft glow spread from the spot Jack had touched, crawling across the surface like water through ink. Patterns bloomed. Geometric, fractal, alive. Theo whispered, "It's responding to you." The air in the shed vibrated. A beam of soft blue light shot up from the sphere, illuminating the ceiling, then widening into a projection, a 3D hologram suspended in the air. It began with numbers, pi, golden ratio, prime sequences, then molecules, carbon, water, DNA strands, then images, planetary systems, spiral galaxies, a map, not of Earth, not of the solar system, bigger, broader, and finally, a timeline. It showed a vast cloud moving through space, its tendrils wrapping around a small planet. The projection zoomed in, Earth. The date, 252 million years ago. A red pulse marked extinction. Another pulse, now. Then the light snapped off. The sphere dimmed. Silence returned like a curtain falling. Jack sat back, blinking. Theo said nothing for several seconds. Then he turned to Jack, his voice shaking with something between awe and dread. "This isn't a message from Earth." Jack nodded slowly. "No, it's a warning or a prediction." Shadow barked once, sharp and urgent. Theo stared at the object, now inert once more. Then he said, almost to himself, "Some things speak in silence louder than any machine ever could." Jack exhaled, then whispered, "What the hell did we just activate?" Theo stood, checked his equipment, then froze. "Jack." "What?" Theo held up his tablet. A signal was being emitted, subtle, barely traceable, but real. "Something just went out." Jack's jaw clenched. "You mean like a broadcast?" Theo nodded. "Not strong, not far, but yeah. A ping." Shadow began pacing again. Jack looked toward the door. Then someone, or something, might have heard it. In the distance, miles down the mountain road, a black SUV turned off its headlights and slowly approached the outer perimeter of Jack's land. Inside, two men sat in silence, watching the signal blink across a screen. Theo and Jack must face the reality that this object isn't just a passive relic. It's active, and it's drawn attention. The line between scientific curiosity and survival is about to shatter. The next morning, frost clung to the trees like a memory that refused to melt. Jack poured 2 mugs of black coffee, handed one to Theo, and stared out the kitchen window. The sphere sat alone in the shed, dormant again, if that word even applied to something like it. Shadow hadn't taken his eyes off the door all night. No barking, just watching, waiting. Jack sipped his coffee and said, "You sleep?" "Barely," Theo muttered. "Dreamed in fractals." Jack grunted. "Sounds restful." Theo stood, stretching stiff joints. "I ran a signal analysis on the tablet. Whatever that thing beamed out, it wasn't radio. It was low-frequency electromagnetic, possibly directional." Jack raised a brow. "In English?" Theo scratched his beard. "It didn't call for help. It aimed at something." Jack's jaw tensed. "And if something calls back? That's what we need to figure out." He nodded toward the back door. "Let's go take another look. I want to see if the sequence repeats." Jack grabbed his rifle on the way out, not out of paranoia, habit. They entered the shed, now colder than the outside air. Theo immediately powered up his equipment. The sphere remained still, as if the light show from last night had never happened. Theo knelt beside it again, his fingers hovering just above the surface. He didn't touch it yet. "I've been thinking," he said. "That sequence. It wasn't just a message, it was structured, logical progression. Math, biology, astronomy, then that timeline. The cloud. Yeah. A cosmic event. It wiped out most life on Earth during the Permian-Triassic extinction. 90% of all marine species gone, and it's coming back." Jack shifted uncomfortably. "You're saying something out there is warning us about our own past?" "I think something out there remembers it." Theo tapped the sphere lightly. It remained inert. "I don't think it's a threat. I think it's a warning beacon. A last gasp from a civilization smarter than ours." Jack frowned. "And if they're smarter, why send it here? Why not to NASA or Geneva or somewhere with a satellite dish the size of a building?" Theo looked up at him. "Maybe we're not the first ones who've tried to cover it up." That hit harder than Jack expected. He looked out toward the forest, where the tree line remained unnaturally quiet. Theo stood. "Let's try triggering the response again." Jack hesitated. "Last time we did that, we got an invisible radio ping and some unexpected company." "Fair point. But it might be our only shot at understanding what's coming." Before Jack could reply, Shadow let out a sharp bark from the house, then another. Faster. Urgent. Jack moved fast. He burst out of the shed with Theo right behind him. Shadow was at the front window, growling low. Jack stepped to his side and followed his gaze. 2 men, suited, clean, standing on the edge of the tree line, 20 feet from the front porch. No car, no trail. They hadn't come in the usual way. Jack lowered the rifle, but didn't put it down. Theo stepped to the door. "They yours?" "Nope." One of the men raised a hand. Calm, empty. "Mr. Whitmore," he called. "We're with the Department of Geological Survey. We've been monitoring local seismic anomalies. May we come in?" Jack didn't move. "That badge you're not showing," he said flatly. "Is it real, or do you just keep it in your imagination?" The man smiled politely, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We're just here to ask a few questions." "I got no questions, and you're not getting answers." The other man spoke this time. We're aware of what you found. It may be hazardous. National interest, you understand. Jack's grip tightened. Back off my land. Theo whispered behind him. Jack. But Jack didn't blink. You're not here for geology, he said. You're here because of that signal. The man's smile vanished. You've had your chance to walk away, he said, voice flat now. This is your last. Jack raised the rifle. So's this. The two men held their ground for a beat longer. Then, without another word, they turned and walked calmly into the trees. Jack watched until they were gone. Theo's voice came low, serious. They'll be back, I know. And next time they won't knock. Jack nodded. Inside, Shadow still stared at the window, his ears twitching. Theo looked back at the shed. We don't have much time. Jack took a deep breath. Let's do it, he said. Let's see what else this thing wants to say. Back in the shed, Jack pressed the same barely visible line. The sphere came alive. This time, the sequence skipped the introductions. It went straight to the projection. But now, there was more. The cloud, the same one, was shown approaching Earth. Then simulations, probabilities, trajectories, estimated impact, within 18 to 22 years. Theo's breath hitched. It's not just coming. It's already been seen. A data stream scrolled, then a final pulse, coordinates. In Montana, a spot labeled Caldera Site, Ridge Echo Node. Theo stared in disbelief. Crater Ridge, he muttered. Of course. Volcanic pocket. Natural amplifier. That's where it wants to be. Why? Jack asked. I don't know, but if it's broadcasting, it wants to do it from there. Jack looked toward the forest again. Theo followed his gaze, and then he said it. This isn't science fiction. This is science. Uninvited. Jack turned toward him. We take it there? Theo nodded. If it's a beacon, we finish what it started. Outside, the wind shifted. Somewhere deeper in the trees, a new sound rose. A mechanical hum, distant, but getting closer. Jack and Theo now know the object is not only intelligent, but location-sensitive. But others want it, and they aren't asking anymore. Next chapter begins with the tension snapping. The hum turned into a rumble. Jack knew that sound. It wasn't the wind, it wasn't thunder. It was tires, thick ones, off-road. Quiet, but not quiet enough. He stepped onto the porch and raised his rifle as a matte grey SUV crawled into view at the edge of the clearing. No license plate, no insignia, just steel and shadow and menace. Shadow barked once, deep and sharp, then fell silent, like he too was calculating the threat. Theo came up behind Jack, eyes wide. They're early. They're prepared. The SUV stopped 10 feet from the porch. Two men stepped out, same dark suits, same dead eyes. No pretense this time, no fake credentials. One of them carried a metal case, the other let his jacket swing open just enough to reveal the grip of a sidearm. Jack's voice was steady. You weren't invited, the taller man spoke. We're not here for permission, just retrieval. You're not getting it, the man raised an eyebrow. We're not offering a choice. Theo stepped beside Jack. You don't even know what it is. The man's expression didn't change. We don't need to. That did it. Jack raised his rifle and said, cold and even, They're not here to ask. They're here to take. The man didn't flinch. Last warning. No, Jack said. That was yours. He pulled the trigger. The crack of the rifle echoed like a thunderclap in the clearing. The round hit the dirt inches from the man's boots. He didn't even blink. The man behind him moved fast, reaching inside his coat. Shadow lunged. Snarling, a blur of fur and teeth, the dog tore into the agent before the weapon cleared the holster. The man went down hard, howling as Shadow sank his teeth into his arm. Jack fired again, this time aimed high, shattering the windshield of the SUV. Glass exploded. The second man dove behind the vehicle, dragging the metal case with him. Theo ducked as a round cracked past his ear. "Inside!" Jack barked. They slammed the door behind them. Jack shoved a metal rod through the latch and overturned the kitchen table. Theo yanked down the blinds, heart hammering. "Shadow?" he asked. "He'll come," Jack said, already moving toward the shed. "The sphere? We're not leaving it." Theo followed him into the back room. The shed was connected to the house by a short breezeway. Jack kicked the inner door open, revealing the darkened workshop and the sphere still pulsing faintly with inner light. He threw open the storage trunk, yanked out a pair of duffel bags, and began loading equipment, Theo's devices, external drives, weapons, rations. Theo stared at him. "You planned for this." Jack zipped the bag shut. "Didn't plan. Just knew it was coming." Behind them, gunfire shattered the kitchen window. Jack cursed. "We go now." Theo hesitated. "What about Shadow?" The answer came with a thud. The shed door burst open and Shadow barreled in, muzzle streaked with blood, limping slightly but still moving like a missile. "Attaboy," Jack muttered, tossing him a quick pat before lifting the sphere. It took both men, awkward, dense, humming like it recognized urgency. Through the back, they slipped into the woods. They moved fast. No trails, no lights. Jack knew these woods better than anyone. Theo tried to keep up, but the terrain was punishing, twisting roots, cold mud and hidden drops. Shadow stayed close, ears alert, body tense. Behind them, faint voices echoed. A spotlight cut briefly through the canopy. Jack stopped just long enough to catch his breath. "Crater Ridge is about 30 miles east." Theo's eyes widened. "On foot? We're not walking the whole way. I know a place we can hole up, resupply." "Where?" "A friend." Theo didn't ask, just nodded. They pushed on. By dawn, they reached the Firewatch Trail, a narrow path carved into the base of the mountain. It hadn't been used in years. Jack led them up, boots crunching over dry leaves and frost-hardened soil. Near the summit, a wooden cabin came into view, small, weather-beaten but intact. A faded U.S. Forest Service symbol was still nailed above the door. Jack knocked twice, paused, then 3 times. The door creaked open. A man stood in the doorway, built like a boulder in flannel and denim, hair tied back, shotgun in hand. He stared at Jack. Then he grinned. "Thought you were dead." "Close enough." The man looked over Jack's shoulder at Theo, the sphere, and Shadow's bloodied snout. Then he opened the door wider. "Get in." Inside, the place was sparse but stocked, fire crackling, ammo crates under the bed, a radio set from the Reagan era. Jack set the sphere down carefully on a wool blanket. It pulsed once, stronger this time. The man, Mac Delaney, Jack's old army buddy, handed Theo a flask. "Name's Mac. You look like hell." Theo took a swig. "Feels worse." Mac turned to Jack. "What the hell did you bring me?" "Not sure," Jack said, "but someone wants it real bad. And it's got more to say." Theo opened his laptop. "Before we left, it showed us new coordinates. A volcanic ridge about 20 miles from here." Mac's eyes narrowed. "You mean Crater Ridge?" "Yeah," Mac rubbed his jaw. "It's restricted. No roads, no aerial scans since 2007. Last fire season they sealed off access completely." "Perfect," Jack said. "That means they're not watching it." Theo looked up. "Whatever this thing is, it's leading us there." Jack nodded. "And we follow." Mac opened a cabinet and started pulling out maps, radios, gear. He looked at Jack and smiled grimly. "Well, hell, let's start a forest fire." Jack, Theo, and Mac begin preparations for their journey to Crater Ridge, but they know they'll be pursued. As they move, tensions rise and the sphere begins to react more strongly. hinting it's not done, revealing its purpose. Snow started falling by nightfall, fine, dry flurries that drifted through the pines like ash. Jack watched it from the edge of Mac's cabin porch, rifle across his lap, the weight of the last 24 hours pressing into his spine. Theo was inside rerunning data from the last projection. Shadow lay curled at Jack's feet, ears twitching at every distant sound. Mac stepped out and lit a cigarette, with hands too steady for the kind of chaos they were in. "Still no radio chatter." "They're regrouping," Jack said. "They didn't follow us for this long to give up now." Mac exhaled a thin stream of smoke. "You always did piss off the right kind of people." Inside the cabin, the sphere pulsed again, dim blue at first, then a quick flicker of red. Jack noticed. "Mac, get Theo." Seconds later, Theo ran out with his tablet. "It's doing something. Energy spike." Jack turned to him. "How bad?" "Not sure yet, but it's reacting to something." Mac flicked his cigarette into the snow. "Could be proximity to Crater Ridge, or maybe it's just tired of waiting." Theo frowned. "There's something else. The data it's giving off, it's layered, like code, but not binary, organic." Jack looked between them. "Can we move it?" Theo nodded. "The pulse is strong but stable. It wants to move, and the sooner we get to Crater Ridge, the better." Mac turned toward the shed where he kept his Polaris ATV. "We'll go by back trails." "Stay low. Quiet." Shadow barked once, sharp, a sound Jack had learned to trust. He was already grabbing his gear. "They're close." They loaded fast, 2 ATVs, each hauling sled trailers. Jack rode point with Shadow beside him. Theo and Mac secured the sphere in the rear sled, padded with blankets and bungees to limit vibration. As they rode into the dark woods, snow coated the branches like skeletal fingers. Visibility dropped. The air got colder. Theo kept looking back. "What is it?" Mac asked. Theo's voice barely carried over the engine. "The sphere. It's heating up. Dangerous?" "I don't know yet." They cut deeper into the forest. There were no real roads anymore, just animal tracks and forgotten fire breaks. Mac led them through a dry riverbed, choked with ice and fallen limbs. The terrain got rougher. Then they saw it, a flicker of movement in the trees behind them, fast, coordinated, lights, too controlled to be hikers, too silent for locals. Jack gunned the throttle. "Go!" The ATVs roared forward, engines howling through the trees. Snow kicked up behind them. The sled with the sphere bounced, groaned, but held. Behind them, boots hit frozen ground. Voices echoed, radio static, clipped commands. They were being hunted. Theo ducked as a bullet cracked past his shoulder. "They're shooting!" Jack gritted his teeth. "Not here to negotiate." They veered through a narrow canyon where the trees closed in tight. Jack slowed only enough to let the others catch up. Then the first drone appeared overhead, small, fast, quiet. It zipped past, looped, then fired a flare that lit the trail like daylight. "Damn it!" Mac shouted. "They've got air eyes!" Theo pulled a device from his coat, a signal jammer cobbled from old ham parts and salvaged microwave boards. "I might be able to cut their link." Jack skidded to a stop. "Now or never." Theo dropped to the snow, scrambled to connect wires, and powered on the device. A burst of white noise erupted through their comms. The drone jerked mid-air, lost control, and crashed into a tree with a satisfying crunch. Shadow barked in approval. "Got it!" Theo said, breathless. Jack turned to him. "Then move." They pushed forward, deeper into the mountains. But the sphere, it started to glow again. This time, not just light. Sound. A low, humming tone that vibrated through their gear, their bones, the trees themselves. Not threatening, calling, like sonar, like a beacon returning home. Jack slowed again as they reached a ridge clearing. Below them, Crater Ridge sprawled wide, blanketed in fog and moonlight. Steam hissed from hidden vents in the earth. The terrain looked raw, unfinished, scarred by ancient violence and waiting for something to return. Theo whispered, "It's here. It knows." Jack stared down at the landscape and said, more to himself than anyone, "Sometimes the only way out is through. No more hiding. No more waiting." This was the destination. Whatever waited down there, answers, danger, something in between, they had to meet it head-on. Theo adjusted the sled cables. "We can't drive the rest. The terrain's too rough. We'll carry it from here." Mac frowned. 4 hands, 1 beast, and an alien football. Great odds. Jack looked at him. "We've had worse." They unhooked the sled. Each man grabbed a side of the sphere, still impossibly heavy despite its size, but it cooperated, as if helping. They moved slowly down the incline, dodging rocks, steam vents, and loose ground. Shadow stayed close, ever alert. As they reached the basin floor, the sphere pulsed stronger. The sound grew louder, not painful, but more urgent. Theo suddenly dropped to his knees. "Wait!" Jack turned. "What is it?" Theo pointed. "It's scanning." From the sphere, light traced across the ground like veins of electricity. It mapped the terrain, forming a grid of glowing lines and intersections. Then, dead center of the basin, the ground split with a hiss. A circular platform rose from the earth, stone, metal, something in between. The light narrowed, focusing on that spot. Mac muttered, "We just unlocked something." Jack nodded. "Then let's finish what we started." They placed the sphere on the platform. It sank half an inch into a perfect recess. Silence. Then a vertical beam shot into the sky. Blue, blinding, piercing the clouds. They all stumbled back. The ground vibrated. The forest behind them lit up like daylight. Mac raised his weapon. "If they weren't coming before," Jack finished the thought. "They are now." Theo stared into the sky, eyes wide. "We just sent the loudest signal this planet's had in centuries," Shadow growled, and behind them, up the ridge, movement, dark shapes, tactical gear, flashlights off, coming fast. Jack looked at the others. "No more running. We hold them off here." Mac chambered around. Theo checked the sphere one last time. "It's not done yet. The group has activated the sphere's primary function, but now must defend the site against the pursuing agents. Reinforcements are coming, but not all of them are human. The next phase begins at Crater Ridge. The forest cracked with gunfire. Mac fired from behind a jagged slab of basalt, pumping controlled bursts into the tree line. Jack flanked him 10 yards to the left, crouched low behind a geothermal vent, rifle steady in his hands. Theo knelt at the base of the platform, back to the sphere, sweat streaking down his face despite the cold. Shadow paced in a tight circle near the platform, growling, alert, waiting. The blue beam from the sphere still pulsed skyward, cutting through the clouds like a signal flare for gods. Steam hissed from fractured rock, curling around their feet like smoke on a battlefield. Mac ducked down, yanked a spare mag from his vest, and shouted over the noise, "This place is a goddamn beacon, Jack!" Jack gritted his teeth. "That was the point." "They're not even trying to talk now!" A round snapped past Jack's shoulder, embedding in the stone with a sharp crack. He fired back, 2 quick shots. One of the dark-clad figures in the woods dropped, legs twitching. Theo's voice came low, urgent. "The sphere's accelerating." Jack turned. "What does that mean?" "It's pulling more energy from the ground. Volcanic activity spiked as soon as the platform activated. I think it's using geothermal pressure to amplify the signal." Jack cursed under his breath. "So we turned it into a damn volcano transmitter." Mac laughed, half wild, half impressed. And I thought you were just hiding alien treasure. Jack scanned the ridgeline, more of them now, moving in formation, eyes covered, weapons raised, no insignia, no words. They were here to wipe the site clean. Theo said it again, louder this time. It's not just broadcasting, it's preparing something. Shadow barked twice, fast, sharp. Then everything stopped. No gunfire, no movement, no wind, just silence, and the rising pitch of the sphere, a sound like metal singing, then a pop of pressure. Jack spun just in time to see it. The air shimmered, not like heat haze, not like fog, like space itself twisted. A figure stepped through the shimmer. Tall, humanoid, cloaked in something that looked like light bent around bone. It had no face, just smooth silver where a face should be. Jack raised his rifle. Shadow stepped in front of him. The being tilted its head slightly. It didn't speak. But in that moment, Jack felt something brush against his thoughts. A weight. A presence. Then more shimmered in behind it. 3, 5, 8. No weapons. No aggression. Theo whispered, "They're not attacking." Jack kept his voice low. "They're not human either." Mac muttered, "Should we be worried or honored?" Theo looked at the sphere. "I think they came for it." The lead figure raised its hand, if it could be called that, and pointed at the sky. Then, from the ridge above, another flash, this time not from the sphere. A missile. One of the agents had fired a shoulder-mounted launcher aimed directly at the platform. Jack shouted, "Incoming!" The sphere pulsed, once, with a blinding burst of energy. The missile hit an invisible barrier 20 feet above and exploded in a dome of fire and smoke that never reached the ground, a force field. The cloaked beings didn't flinch. The one in front slowly stepped onto the platform and touched the sphere. The blue light shifted, turned white. Theo's eyes widened. "They're not here to take it." Jack asked, "Then what the hell are they doing?" Theo stared, stunned. "They're finishing what we started." A new hum began, deeper, resonant. It vibrated in their bones. The beings raised their arms in unison. Light stretched between them, thin threads, delicate but blinding. They formed a ring around the platform, each anchoring a point in the geometry of something larger, more ancient than language. Mac muttered, "Is this some kind of ritual?" Theo shook his head. "No, it's physics, geometry. They're aligning it. This was always meant to be activated with them." More soldiers appeared at the ridge, 10, maybe 15. Hesitating now, weapons aimed but no longer confident, Jack yelled toward them, voice booming across the basin. "You shoot now! You'll end the world!" No answer. Theo turned to the closest being and tried to speak. "Do you understand us? What's coming?" The being didn't move. But then a wave of images hit Theo's mind. Fast, vivid, overwhelming. A star dying. A dark wave spreading through space like spilled oil. A race of beings, these beings, building monuments across galaxies, each a warning. A memory buried in Earth's mantle, waiting to be remembered. Theo staggered back. "They're not saving us. They're preserving the signal for what comes next." Jack lowered his rifle. "Then what do we do?" Theo's voice was hollow. "Let it finish." The energy ring collapsed inward, imploding silently, then flared outward again, this time forming a perfect sphere around the platform and the beings. The humans were outside now, witnesses. The hum stopped. So did the snow. So did everything. Then, in a flash of light that wasn't light, the platform vanished. The beings gone. The sphere gone. Just the crater remained, smooth, blackened, and quiet. No more signal, no more sound. Just wind returning to the trees. Shadow whined and pressed against Jack's leg. Theo fell to his knees. Mac muttered, "Did we just watch contact? Or a burial?" Jack looked to the sky. The clouds above were different now. Higher. Thinner. Like something had passed through them and left the world just a little less heavy. And then, behind them, a new sound. Helicopters. Military. Big ones. Too late. Jack didn't move. Theo looked up at him and said, "We weren't the message, Jack. We were the delivery system." Jack nodded. And he knew. This wasn't the end. This was the opening chapter of something far bigger. After the contact, the world reacts. Authorities descend. Jack, Theo, and Mac must decide whether to run, hide, or speak. And far above Earth, something answers the signal. The silence didn't last long. Within minutes of the light vanishing and the beings disappearing, the air was filled with the low thrum of helicopters. 4 of them, black, heavy. Their rotors punched through the mist like hammers in slow motion. Jack stood still, rifle lowered but not surrendered. Theo remained kneeling at the crater's edge, eyes glazed in awe and confusion. Mac stepped forward, shotgun still slung but one hand resting on the grip, muscle memory more than intent. Shadow growled low, eyes fixed on the descending aircraft. The choppers landed in a wide semicircle, kicking up ash and dust that coated everything in grey. The ramp on the lead helicopter dropped, and out stepped a woman in a dark tactical coat, no insignia, late 40s. Short, neat hair, calm, surgical posture. Her eyes scanned everything in a second, the crater, the surrounding area, the 3 men, the empty air where the platform had once stood. She didn't introduce herself, she just said, "Where is it?" Jack didn't blink. "Gone." Theo stood slowly. "It wasn't ours to keep." The woman tilted her head, mildly amused. "That's not your call." Mac chuckled. "And what exactly were you planning to do with it? Lock it in a vault until the next extinction event?" The woman stepped forward, eyes fixed on Theo. "You're the scientist. You activated it." Theo said nothing. She held up a tablet. A grainy satellite image flickered across the screen, a bright pulse over Crater Ridge, time-stamped just minutes ago. "The entire world saw that signal. The entire world is asking questions, and I don't like questions." Jack stepped between her and Theo. "Then maybe you should have stopped chasing ghosts and listened when we told you the truth." She glanced past him at the crater. "We've been tracking anomalous seismic readings in this region for over a year. EM pulses, patternless static. We thought it was rogue tech. But now—" She looked directly at Jack. "Now you've turned it into a problem." Jack shrugged. "That's funny. I thought we solved one." She stepped back and gave a curt nod to her team. Soldiers fanned out, scanning, collecting soil samples, running electromagnetic sweeps. Another agent flew a drone over the site. Others snapped thermal images. Theo muttered, "They'll find nothing. It's not just gone physically. It's gone dimensionally." Mac looked sideways. "And that is the most terrifying sentence I've heard all week." Theo exhaled. "It was a relay point, a node, not the origin. It used our planet to boost a signal, some kind of interstellar echo. The real message is still out there. Traveling." Jack said quietly, "And whatever it's meant for is now listening." The woman returned, unimpressed. "We'll take it from here. You 3 will be debriefed. Extensively." "No," Jack said. She raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "You're not locking this up. Not this time. You bury this, and we're all dead the next time that cloud rolls through our solar system." Theo added, "There's a bigger picture now. We need global collaboration. Science. Communication." The woman narrowed her eyes. "What you need is containment." Mac laughed out loud. "Lady, it's too late for that." Whatever veil was between us and the rest of the galaxy just got ripped wide open. Good luck putting that back in the box. She didn't laugh. We'll see. The debriefings were long, silent battles. None of them signed anything. None of them gave more than the basic facts. Shadow stayed with Jack the entire time, like a second conscience. 2 days later, they were quietly released. No charges, no explanations, just escorted out of the facility and told to go back to your lives. Back? Jack stood on his porch again, staring at the tree line. Same forest, same wind. But everything had changed. Theo joined him with 2 coffees, both untouched. He looked like he hadn't slept, and Jack knew he hadn't either. The sphere left something behind, Theo said. Jack turned to him. What? I've been studying the data logs, residual frequencies. It encoded something, fractal wave patterns buried in my tablet's memory. Message? Theo nodded. Coordinates, deep ocean, Mariana Trench. Jack raised an eyebrow. Another site? Theo's voice dropped. Or another node. Jack looked out at the horizon. They sent us a warning. Now they're sending us a path. Theo nodded. And someone has to walk it. Inside, the phone rang. Jack didn't answer it. He didn't need to. He already knew what came next. Half a world away, inside a sealed operations room below Geneva, a panel of international scientists stared at a live feed, an object rising from the bottom of the ocean. Black, spherical, identical. A technician whispered, "Another one?" A man in a lab coat turned to the camera feed. "No," he said. "It's the same." The screen flickered. A symbol glowed on the sphere's surface, a spiral lined with stars. Then the lights in the lab flickered. Jack stood on the ridge as the last bit of light faded behind the trees. Theo joined him. Mac followed, setting down a duffel bag heavy with equipment. Jack didn't say anything at first. Then, finally, he spoke. This story was never ours. We just showed up in the middle of it. Theo looked at him. But we're still in it. Jack nodded. And we've got a long road ahead. Behind them, Shadow barked once. Low, alert. A new signal pulsed on Theo's tablet. The sky overhead trembled. The journey continues to the Mariana Trench. Jack, Theo, and Mac must decide whether to follow the coordinates, even if it means going off-grid. But what lies beneath isn't just another artifact. It's something that remembers. The rain came hard off the Pacific as the research vessel Kodiak Line pushed through choppy waters, cutting a path toward the most remote corner of the Mariana Trench. Jack stood on the aft deck, hands gripping the cold rail. The sky above was slate grey, the sea endless and unforgiving. He didn't say much. He hadn't since they boarded. Below deck, Theo was hunched over a spread of monitors and sonar readings, rerouting data from the sphere's last broadcast. Mac leaned against the wall, watching him work while pretending not to chew through his 5th stick of gum in 10 minutes. The hum of the engines mixed with the churn of water and the low static of communications. All of it felt muted, like the world was holding its breath. This is the edge of everything, Theo said quietly, not looking up. Depth, over 35,000 feet. Pressure strong enough to crush steel, and yet something's alive down there. Mac raised an eyebrow. Alive? Theo pointed at a jagged waveform on one of the monitors. These pulses, non-random, non-terrestrial, same structure as the Crater Ridge signature, but now denser, older, like it's not sending a message, it's remembering one. Jack walked in from the deck, water dripping from his jacket. So we're diving into a memory? Theo nodded. Or into something trying to remember us? Mac exhaled sharply. Fantastic. We're going into the mind of an alien corpse at the bottom of the ocean. Jack grabbed a towel, dried his face, and sat. We've seen what it left behind. Now it's time we meet what stayed behind. By morning, the crew had locked in coordinates. A small submersible, Orpheus III was prepped on deck, its black titanium hull shining like obsidian under cloud-filtered light. Two-person crew max, the subtech said. Fully autonomous return in case of signal loss. You lose power down there, you're not getting a second chance. Jack strapped into the flight seat. Theo climbed in beside him, eyes wide behind the helmet visor. Mac hovered by the hatch. I still say it should have been me. Jack smirked. You're too loud to sneak up on God. Mac chuckled and slapped the side of the sub. Just come back with something worth the therapy. The hatch sealed. Inside, the world dimmed, then disappeared. The descent was slow, mechanical, and oddly intimate. Two men sealed in a capsule the size of a coffin, drifting downward through miles of cold, crushing black. As they crossed into the abyssal zone, Jack finally spoke. This isn't exploration. This is confrontation. Theo looked over. You mean with them? Jack shook his head. No, with ourselves. They built a mirror. We're just now brave enough to look. The sub's lights flicked on as they approached the trench wall, jagged, alien, ancient. Nothing moved, no fish, no current, just stillness. Then, on sonar, a pulse, low, deep, like a breath being held for centuries, and finally exhaled. Did you see that? Theo said, fingers flying over the console. I felt it, Jack said. Ahead, nestled in the sediment, they saw it. Another sphere, but not quite the same. This one was fractured, scorched, half buried in the trench floor like a forgotten heart. It pulsed faintly, a sickly orange glow leaking from deep cracks in its shell. Theo whispered, It's dying. Jack leaned forward. Or waiting. They hovered closer. The sphere lit up suddenly, orange fading to white, then blue, then a spectrum of impossible colors that bent perception. Theo clutched his head. It's not light, it's language. Translate? I don't have to. It's not meant to be read. It's meant to be felt. The sub's lights blinked out. Darkness. Absolute. But the sphere glowed brighter. Inside Jack's mind, images came, disjointed, raw, visceral. A planet burning, a civilization crumbling, children running under red skies, a fleet of spheres launched like seeds into the void. One found Earth. One remembered. And it knew. It had failed. Theo's voice came choked, as if underwater. It was their last chance to warn someone, to preserve memory, data, guilt. Jack gritted his teeth. Why guilt? Then came the final image. Earth. But not as it was. As it would be, choked in black clouds, oceans boiling, sky fractured by meteoric storms, a silent scream in orbit, a repeat of the cosmic cycle, then silence. The lights returned. The sphere flickered once, then split open, not breaking, but unfolding. Inside, a small crystalline shard suspended in a magnetic field, rotating slowly. Jack reached for it. Theo hesitated. Jack. Jack took it. Nothing happened. Then everything did. A pulse travelled back up the trench, shaking the walls, rippling through sonar. Back on the surface, alarm screamed. Mac rushed to the sonar operator. What the hell is that? The tech stared at the screen. There's something rising. From the deep, the trench echoed. Not from the sub, not from the sphere, from the Earth itself. In the sub, Jack and Theo watched as the walls around the sphere began to collapse. The pressure's shifting, Theo shouted. We've triggered something. Tectonic! The sub groaned. Jack gripped the controls. Time to go. Theo input the emergency return sequence. We have the shard. That has to be the key. Jack whispered, or the trigger. The sub's engines kicked in. They rose fast, the trench wall falling away beneath them, Below, the fractured sphere collapsed in on itself. A faint scream, not sound but memory, rattled their minds. Then silence. Again. The Kodiak line recovered the sub just as a mild tremor rolled across the ocean surface, barely noticeable to the world, but massive to those who knew what caused it. Jack climbed out, still gripping the shard. Theo followed, pale and shaking. Mac met them, scanning their faces. "What did you find?" Theo stared at the ocean. "The truth." Jack opened his hand. The shard floated, glowing dimly. "It's a key," he said, "and we just unlocked the next door." With the shard now in hand, Jack, Theo, and Mac faced new questions about its purpose and its consequences. But they're not the only ones tracking the signal. Elsewhere in space, something stirs, something that remembers Earth, and it's coming. The shard wouldn't stop spinning. Inside the dim lab on the outskirts of Tokyo, one of the last remaining off-grid research facilities that Theo could trust, the crystalline shard floated in mid-air above a reinforced obsidian slab. It spun faster with each hour, glowing faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Theo stared at it through the leaded glass partition, his fingers twitching with suppressed urgency. Monitors behind him blinked with unreadable data, symbols that refused to remain static, morphing into new structures, geometries, equations too old or too advanced to follow. Mac stood nearby, arms crossed. "It's like it's talking, but only in riddles." Jack leaned against the far wall, silent, watching Theo more than the shard. Theo didn't take his eyes off it. "It's not talking." "What then?" Mac asked. Theo finally turned. "It's remembering." Jack's eyes narrowed. "Like the one in the trench?" Theo nodded. "But this one is complete. The trench artifact was a husk, damaged, fractured. This is like a master key. And it's not just memory storage, it's waking up." The shard pulsed again, this time sending a low-frequency hum through the walls. The lights flickered. Every screen in the room blanked for 3 seconds. When they returned, the lab's satellite dish, a relic from the Cold War era, jerked on its own. Repositioned. Slowly, but deliberately. Theo looked at the readout. "It's aligning with something. Not a star, not a planet." Jack walked up to the console. "Then what?" Theo zoomed out the satellite alignment chart. There, deep in the black, a single blip. Faint. Moving. Theo tapped the screen, whispering the words like a confession. "Something's coming, and it's answering the call." 12 hours later, they moved. Jack knew they didn't have long. If the shard's signal had reached something out there, it wouldn't be long before something down here started listening in, too. Government, private tech, worse. He contacted Rayner, an old contact from his military days, now deep in the civilian aerospace black market. She didn't ask many questions, just coordinates, and how much danger to expect. Her answer came fast. "All of it." They met her at a clandestine airfield in Alaska, where winter wrapped the tarmac in ice and silence. Her plane, sleek, dark, unregistered, sat humming on the far end. Rayner stepped out, boots crunching over frost, eyes shielded behind mirrored lenses. She smirked at Jack. "You're lucky I owe you." "I'm not sure that covers what we're walking into." Rayner looked at the shard case Theo carried. "This it?" Theo nodded. She knelt beside it, watching the glow reflect on the snow. "It's not man-made, but it knows us. That's rare." Mac zipped his coat tighter. "And unsettling." Rayner stood. "So, where are we taking it?" Theo handed her a slip of paper, handwritten coordinates in a cipher she wouldn't recognize. She looked, then blinked. "The null sector. Are you kidding?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "What is that?" She sighed. "A dead zone in low Earth orbit. Satellite blackout, comms drop, Even SpaceX refuses to fly over it. Nobody knows why. Theo looked up. The shard does. Rayner stared at the horizon. Then buckle up. The flight was smooth until it wasn't. 2 hours in, every electronic on the jet hiccuped at once. The cabin lights dimmed. Instruments scrambled. The sky outside shifted in hue, blue bleeding to violet, then back again. Theo watched the shard pulse in its case, the rhythm syncing perfectly with the turbulence. "It's stabilizing the field around us," he said. Mac looked queasy. "Feels more like it's bending it." Jack sat forward. "We near the zone?" Rayner checked a backup compass, the only thing still reliable. 2 minutes out. "If anything's going to happen, it's now." It happened in one. The jet shuddered violently. A ripple passed through the sky itself, like space was stretching, flexing. Then, ahead, something appeared. A shadow, large, slow-moving, stationary. But there, not a ship, not a station, a structure. A massive black ring floating against the curve of the Earth like a forgotten crown. No radar detected it. No system acknowledged it. But the shard glowed. Theo stood, eyes wide. "That's what called us." Rayner's voice cracked. "That thing wasn't here last week." Jack's tone was cold. "That thing wasn't here at all. They couldn't dock. The ring had no ports, no hatches, no openings. But as the jet circled closer, the shard responded, projecting a pulse from within its case, casting a symbol onto the cockpit windshield, a spiral, nested, fractal, the same symbol that had appeared above Crater Ridge. Jack watched as a section of the black ring began to ripple, smooth metal folding like liquid, revealing an entry corridor that hadn't been visible until now. Mac muttered, "That's either the invitation or the trap." Rayner piloted the jet forward. "You've got 5 minutes. That thing closes on its own." Jack turned to Theo. "You ready?" Theo looked at him, eyes steady. "We passed ready 4 chapters ago." They entered the ring. Inside, gravity shifted. The walls weren't metal. They were something else, something that reflected memory. As they moved, images appeared. Jack in uniform, Theo in his childhood bedroom, Mac in a trench he never spoke about. The structure wasn't just a vessel. It was an archive. At the center, they found a chamber, circular, humming with the same frequency the shard had emitted from the trench. Jack stepped forward and placed the shard into a recess in the floor. Everything stopped. Then, a voice. No sound, just presence. It filled their minds. "You are not the first, but you may be the last." The chamber darkened. A map unfolded in light. Stars, galaxies, routes traced in thin gold lines. Some blinked softly. Others were crossed out. Earth flickered. A path led from it to nothing. Theo whispered, "This is a warning." Mac swallowed hard. "About what?" The voice again. "The silence between stars is not peace. It is consequence." Now, inside the ring, Jack and the team are shown a message from a long-dead civilization. The real threat isn't the artifacts, it's what wiped out the ones who left them. Earth is now on the same path unless they act fast. And the countdown has already started. Light bent, not like refraction, like memory folding. Inside the heart of the ring, Jack, Theo, and Mac stood surrounded by a shifting panorama of stars and dying civilizations. The map pulsing above them wasn't static. It moved with thought, responding not to commands, but to awareness. Galaxies spun, then unraveled. Paths bloomed into view and collapsed just as quickly. Earth's position pulsed dimly on the edge of a flickering spiral arm. Theo's voice was barely audible. "They recorded the collapse of hundreds of systems, and they left it here for someone to find. Mac slowly turned in place, watching ancient stellar roots disintegrate. And every one of those lights, gone. A deep vibration ran through the floor like a heartbeat beneath stone. The voice returned, not sound, not words, but truth made audible. We warned them. They refused to change course. Jack looked at the nearest projection. A planet cracked open like an egg, its core siphoned into space. He clenched his jaw. Who did this? A pause. Then, we did, to contain what they summoned. The map contracted. Focused. A star blinked red, then another, then 4, then 20, then all at once, a path, a crimson fracture, snaked across the galaxy toward Earth. Theo flinched. That's not a route, Jack's voice dropped. It's a hunting pattern. The air thickened. Jack could feel something on the edge of his thoughts, not malevolent but immense, like a tidal wave that hadn't yet broken. Explain, he said. The chamber responded by showing them a scene, a thriving civilization, elegant towers under a blue sun, peaceful, advanced. Then came the distortion. Not a ship, not a being, a phenomenon, a ripple in reality that devoured matter and memory alike. Whole cities swallowed in moments. Orbiting stations blinked out of existence without warning. No fire, no war, just unmaking. Theo fell to his knees. They tried to communicate with it. Mac crouched beside him. What was it? The voice answered. Not what. When. Silence. Then it clarified. They broke causality, bent it until it collapsed. They summoned a time fracture, a wound in the sequence of events. It did not obey physics. It did not negotiate. Jack whispered. They called it forward, and it swallowed backward. The projection showed one last image, a sphere, like the one in the trench, but intact, floating in deep space, alone, bleeding data into the void. The voice faded, but a phrase remained, a sentence, clear and echoing in each of their minds. You are not ahead of the collapse. You are inside it. Rayner's voice came through the comm unit on Jack's suit, crackling. Jack, you're going to want to get back here. We have guests. Jack tapped his earpiece. Say again. Multiple contacts. Not government, not human. They're not attacking, but they're here. One of them spoke your name. Jack looked at Theo. Time to go. Theo hesitated. But the system's not going anywhere. We are. He pulled the shard from the pedestal. As he did, the chamber began to seal. The map retracted, the symbols folding into one final projection, a single glowing word in ancient script. Theo stared. It means anchor. Jack narrowed his eyes. Or last chance. Back aboard Rayner's jet, the mood was different. 3 beings stood just outside the hangar, a strange echo of the ones at Crater Ridge. Taller, thinner, no faces, no weapons. Their bodies shimmered like glass wrapped in starlight. One stepped forward, hands raised. Rayner stood between them and the others, jaw tight. I didn't know if I should shoot or salute. Jack walked past her and met the being's gaze, or where one would be. The air between them shimmered. Then, in his mind, you saw it. Jack nodded. You understand? Yes, he said aloud. But we don't know how to stop it. A pause. Then, you won't. Alone. The being held out one long, 3-jointed hand. Resting in the center of its palm was a second shard, similar in structure but etched with different lines. A companion. Theo stepped up, awe overtaking fear. Why give us this? Because your species still has time to choose. The second shard leapt into Theo's hands, responding instantly to his presence. The being turned. Others are watching. Not all are allies. Mac muttered, "That's the nicest way I've ever been told we're screwed." The beings stepped back, and as quickly as they had come, they vanished. Not into the air, into a fold in reality that closed behind them like it had never existed. Later, as the team regrouped in the cabin of the plane, Jack stared out the window. The earth below looked unchanged, quiet, innocent. But he knew better now. The countdown wasn't theoretical. It had begun. Theo placed both shards on the table. They spun in tandem, pulsing in sync. A pattern emerged on the screens, a helix of time signatures, coordinates, and unknown glyphs. "It's showing us the other anchors," he said. "They're scattered, buried, but they're out there." Mac leaned forward. "And what? We collect 'em all and save the world?" Theo met his eyes. "We anchor time, or time collapses." Jack looked up, calm, clear. "Then we don't just run anymore. We build a map, and we find the others." He tapped the first point on the helix, somewhere deep in the Sahara Desert, and beneath that, a heartbeat, waiting. Jack and the team traveled to the Sahara, where the second anchor waits, buried beneath ruins older than recorded history. But they're not the only ones looking for it. A new enemy emerges, one who remembers the fracture intimately. The desert was endless. Waves of heat rose off the golden sands as the sun beat down with a violence that felt almost personal. The helicopter kicked up dust as it descended, blades slicing the dry air above a crumbling stone outpost buried beneath centuries of wind. The map led here, a forgotten ruin on the edge of the Tanner's Rooft, one of the most remote places on Earth. Jack stepped out first, boots crunching on ancient rock. Theo followed, adjusting the coordinates on his handheld scanner. The shards glowed faintly in his pack, reacting to something below them. Mac wiped sweat from his brow, already irritated. "Tell me we're not digging through the Sahara for a space key based on alien vibes and ancient vibes." Jack scanned the ruins. "That's exactly what we're doing." Theo didn't look up. "Except these vibes just pinged an energy signature 3 meters beneath the largest slab. It's not random, it's buried deliberately." Raina, now fully embedded in their team after Tokyo, crouched beside the broken remains of what once looked like a monolith. She traced her fingers across unfamiliar carvings, glyphs that danced in the light when seen from certain angles. "I've seen these," she said softly, "but not in a book. In a dream." Jack glanced at her. She didn't flinch. Theo cleared his throat. "It's not impossible. The signals are psychic adaptive. The first shard activated Jack. The second bonded to me. Maybe this one called out to her." Mac shook his head. "So now we're letting magic dreams dictate our treasure hunts. Great." Theo stepped over to the slab, placed a palm on it, and the sand shifted. A tremor passed through the ground. The slab retracted, stone folding away like a puzzle box, revealing a staircase that hadn't seen light in millennia. Raina drew her sidearm. "Let's find out what dreams are made of." The descent was narrow, the air colder than expected. The walls were carved with symbols that pulsed dimly as they passed. A spiral motif repeated often, some cracked, some scorched. Theo spoke into the quiet. "These ruins weren't destroyed by time. They were attacked." Jack ran a gloved hand across a section where the stone had melted, as if from heat far beyond fire. Then they reached it. At the bottom, a chamber of glass and bone. The anchor hovered above a pedestal of obsidian, suspended in magnetic stasis. This one was different, sharper, almost blade-like in shape. Its pulse was erratic, broken. Raina stepped forward. The shard in Theo's bag reacted instantly, spinning, glowing hot. And then the walls screamed, not physically, mentally. A wave of anguish, betrayal, fury, and something else. Recognition. Jack staggered back. It knows her. Rayna fell to her knees, hands over her head. "Make it stop, God! Make it stop!" Theo dropped beside her, gripping her arm. "It's not attacking, it's remembering through you. You've been part of the signal longer than we knew." Rayna's voice cracked. "I saw the fracture. In the dream. But it wasn't a dream." Jack crouched. "What did you see?" She looked at him, pupils blown wide. "Not the end. The beginning. The first breach. And someone was watching it. From inside the collapse." The air went still. Then the shard in the pedestal vibrated, and all their shards responded. A field formed between them, 3 anchors now resonating together. Theo gasped. "They're syncing, forming the full equation." A map appeared, not galactic, not star charts, but temporal, tethers connecting Earth's present to broken forks in time, places, moments, decisions. Mac blinked. "That's not just where we go next." Jack nodded slowly. "It's when." Suddenly the map shattered. The chamber lights flickered. A cold wind blew through the underground. Then came the voice. Not like the others. This one was human. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Jack turned, raising his rifle. From the shadows stepped a man, tall, pale, dressed in black fatigues without markings, eyes sharp, calm, dangerous. He smiled at them. "I've been following your breadcrumbs since Crater Ridge. Didn't think you'd get this far." Rayna stepped in front of the anchors. "Who the hell are you?" He tilted his head. "Someone who remembers the fracture better than your alien friends." "Someone who knows the truth they didn't tell you." Theo narrowed his eyes. "Which is," the man's smile widened, "that the collapse wasn't an accident. It was a correction, a purge. The universe healing itself." Jack growled. "By killing billions?" "By erasing mistakes," the man said calmly. "Your planet is one of them." The lights pulsed. Behind him, 5 soldiers stepped into view, equipped with disruptor rifles and resonance jammers. Mac stepped forward. "You here to take the anchor?" "No," the man said. "I'm here to make sure it doesn't connect." He raised a jammer. Fired. The magnetic field shattered. The anchor fell from stasis, clattering to the floor. Rayna lunged, sliding under fire, grabbing it just as the chamber erupted into chaos. Bullets tore through ancient stone. Theo shielded the shards. Jack returned fire, diving across the altar. Mac slammed a jammer into the wall, triggering a burst that scrambled half the enemy comms. The man in black vanished into the smoke, but not before saying, "There are more like me. We don't want salvation. We want silence." They escaped barely. The anchor intact. The chamber in ruins. Back aboard a second evac chopper, arranged by Rayna's contacts, the team sat in silence. Jack finally broke it. "This war isn't between us and them anymore. It's between those who want to remember and those who want to forget." Theo looked at the shards, now aligned, glowing steady. "They tried to erase time. We're rewriting it." Jack leaned forward, staring into the horizon. "We don't stop now. We find the last anchor, and we face the fracture on our terms." With the enemy now revealed and the timeline under siege, the team races to Antarctica, where the final anchor awaits beneath the ice. But activating it means more than survival. It means rewriting the rules of time itself, and not everyone will make it through. The wind howled across the Antarctic plateau like a dying god. Ice stretched endlessly in every direction, broken only by jagged peaks and the harsh silhouette of the underground research dome, an abandoned relic from the Cold War now reactivated with quiet urgency. Beneath its reinforced layers, far below the permafrost and frozen earth, the final anchor pulsed, weak, flickering, as if waiting for a reason to survive. Jack stood at the edge of the circular chamber, frost clinging to his beard, rifle slung but ready. The 3 previous anchors lay suspended around them in a containment ring, glowing in synchrony. Theo hunched over a control panel wired to all 4. His hands shook, not from the cold, but from the weight of everything. Mac paced behind them, tension coiled in his shoulders. Rayner stood by the hatch, eyes locked on the entry corridor. The enemy hadn't shown up yet, but none of them believed they were alone. Theo looked up, his voice low. The 4th one's unstable. The memory it holds, it's deteriorating. We have to merge them now. Jack approached the center pedestal where the final anchor lay dormant, wrapped in centuries of frost. He touched it gently. The moment his fingers met the surface, it pulsed once. Then all 4 anchors lit in unison. Above them, a spiral of light opened, neither a hologram nor a projection, but something truer. A memory web of history, future, and choice. Time folded inward. Theo gasped. It's starting. The memory collapse, or salvation. A vibration filled the room. Not noise, not energy, something deeper. Consequence. Then came the voice, familiar now, ancient and collective. You have gathered the fragments. You may choose the path, preserve the fracture, or seal it. Mac blinked. What does that mean? We're supposed to choose? Rayner whispered. I think we always were. Theo scanned the web. If we preserve the fracture, we keep our current timeline flawed, but ours. We remain in the collapsing loop, surviving moment to moment. Jack's jaw clenched. And sealing it? Theo looked up, face pale. We rewrite, reset everything from the breach point. History reshaped. Billions might live, or never exist at all. We don't know what survives. Even us. Silence fell. The anchors pulsed. Then footsteps echoed from above. The man in black entered, gun drawn, calm as ever. This time alone. You can't win both, he said. You want salvation. You erase everything that made you you. You want truth. You carry your mistakes into the next collapse. Jack stepped between him and the console. Why are you so afraid of hope? The man smiled sadly. Because hope rewrites the rules, and when that happens, we're no longer the authors. Theo stepped forward. You lived through the first breach, didn't you? The man nodded. Watched my timeline die. Reborn in this one, this version of Earth is a ghost of what once was. A safer ghost. Controlled. Jack's voice dropped. But it's not real. The man raised his weapon. But Rayner was faster. She fired. He dropped to the floor without a word, more relieved than angry. The anchors pulsed once more. Final sequence active. A final message glowed above the console. One path leads to memory, one to mercy. Theo whispered, We have 10 seconds. Mac looked at Jack. What's it gonna be? Jack stared at the anchors, remembering the sphere, the trench, the ring, the visions, the cities that never were, the futures that still could be. He reached out and placed his hand on the center of the web. We seal it, not for what we lose, but for who we might still become. The light didn't explode. It unraveled. Reality folded like a page being turned. The chamber dissolved around them, not with violence, but with peace. Time slowed, then stopped. Jack opened his eyes. Sunlight, not Arctic cold. He stood on a grassy hill overlooking a small town. Children laughed nearby. A breeze carried the smell of spring. No tech, no drones, just life. Shadow barked. Jack turned, his dog bounding toward him across the grass. Theo sat on a bench not far off, watching the sky with a notebook in hand. Raina leaned against a tree, reading quietly. Mac, older now, tossed a baseball to a young kid, both laughing. Jack smiled. He remembered all of it, but no one else did. The anchors were gone, the fracture sealed. They had chosen mercy. Later, Theo found Jack watching the sun set behind the hills. "I checked the stars," Theo said. "They're aligned again. No anomalies, no pulses, just stillness." Jack nodded slowly. "We reset the thread. Do you think anyone will know?" "They don't need to," Jack said. "They're living. That's enough." Theo looked at him. "So what now?" Jack chuckled. "Now, we live with the weight of memory, in a world finally free of it.